We'll move ahead to reviewing what made it to the front pages of our national dailies this morning. We have Daily Trust to start with, and the bolder headline states Tinubu's reforms have not reduced poverty, says World Bank, and that's on pages 3 and 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And just above the bolder headline, reps reject a Christian genocide claim, and that's on page 6 of the Daily Trust. Insecurity, established military base in Kwara, Senate tells a federal government, and that's on page 10 of the Daily Trust. Police suspended tainted permit implementation, and that's on page 14 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And just by the side, we have summits should translate to results, says Sultan. That's on page 16 of the Daily Trust. 13-year-old boy killed in fresh Plateau attack, and that's on page 40 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And FIFA invest over $1 billion in African football, and that's on page 55 of the Daily Trust newspaper. And lastly, residents kick as FCT Council resuscitates TV radio tax, and that's on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Do well to get yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, moving on. And next up, we have The Guardian right in front. World Bank, Nigeria's reforms yielded stability, not relief for poor. That's on page 6 of The Guardian newspaper. At the top left, we have 17 local governments under attack, says Benue Emergency Agency. That is on page 29 of The Guardian. NCC confiscates pirated books valued at 100 million naira in Lagos shops. That's on page 5 of The Guardian. Now, presidency orders military to flush bandits out of Kwara forest. That's on page 3 if you want to read more. Presidency reps knock claims of genocide against Christians to inform United Nations. That's on page 3 of The Guardian. JAM screens 176 underage candidates amid push for policy review. That is on page 7 of The Guardian. INEC court orders IGP Egbeto to arrest Yakubu. That is on page 3 of The Guardian. You can't develop without investment, Obasanjo says. That's on page 29 of The Guardian. Naji's resignation splits opinion, exposes cracks in the vetting system. That is on page 8 of The Guardian newspaper. And last but not the least, we have reps summoned to guard envoys over $54 million foreign mission funds. That is on The Guardian newspaper. That's all we have on The Guardian. Make sure you grab yourself a copy and stay informed.
All right, joining us to review the front pages of our national dailies this morning is Programs Director, Daily Trust Foundation, Theophilus Abba. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you once again. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's start with the Daily Trust. Tinubu's reforms have not reduced poverty, says World Bank. Now, if you look at, most of the newspapers this morning, that's the first headlines on them. What are your thoughts?
Well, from the perspective of a newspaper person, because you say I'm program director, but I've been a newspaper all my life. From the perspective of a newspaper person, it became the headline, the lead story, because the World Bank has consistently supported Tinubu's reform. So if you have supported the reform over the years, and you now come to say it has deepened poverty, it becomes quite interesting, because you have said remove subsidy on petrol, devalue the naira or let the naira float, is floating, increase electricity tariff, it is increasing. You understand? So everything that Tinubu has done, if you read either IMF reports and recommendations or World Bank reports and recommendations before Tinubu came in, they are ticking the boxes. They are actually ticking the boxes. So the issue is, after ticking the boxes recommended by World Bank and IMF, we now discover that, look, this has caused poverty to increase. What does it mean? Actually, it means that while the presidency of this government has been ticking the boxes to please, let me use the word now, loosely. I know those who support going, to please the IMF, the World Bank, and the internet and the West. Let me put it that way. Is the things that ought to be done, to ensure that human beings in Nigeria are not so negatively affected, were not properly done. Because if you are engaging on reforms, there has to be a way of cushioning the effects of this reform. Now, if you look at the conditional cash transfer, there are some Nigerians, some millions who are receiving maybe 25,000 naira every month from government. That also is a World Bank and IMF recommended policy. It's not a local. It's not a locally generated policy. It's the World Bank that says, okay, because of poverty, give a certain category of Nigerians so amount of money so that they can have money to eat, because the poor of the poor. Some of us are criticizing the policy. I don't know anybody who benefits from it, and I live among so many poor people. So the issue is this: the World Bank has recommended this. We have done it, but the excesses, the funds that came from the gains, let me put it down, the gains of this reform, where is this money? That is the question. Now, you've given this money to governors, and this money is not being utilized the way we ought to, the way it should be utilized. For instance, we say inflation is dropping, so you can go to the market, rice is cheaper than it used to be, maybe beans and all this and that. But the things that take people's money the most, transportation is still up there. Fuel is still up there. A buying fare for 890, that is about 910, 915, 95, and all those things is still up there. Now, the thing that make people to live, and feel comfortable as human beings, you don't have access to medical care. If you go to the pharmacy, the cost of drugs are still up there, very high. I wanted to buy one cough syrup this morning, and they gave me 3 options. The one I wanted to buy was about 7,000. I said I can't afford it. So I now had to buy the one of about 3,000. Now, because if the quantity is lower than the one I wanted to buy. Now, what I'm saying is that the cost of medical care has gone up. So even people who could have received healing, medical care, with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, cannot afford it. So it's not just like saying, no, there's stability. The stability they talk about is that, okay, if dollar to naira is no longer 1,007, 1,008, 1,009. It's now 1,004 something. You don't know. They now say, okay, at least there's a stability in that exchange rate. But it is not actually reflecting the living standard of people. If you look at the value of the money you hold, what can this money buy for you? Is an issue. So the government needs to sit down and say, okay, how do we ensure that the ordinary Nigerian does not suffer too much? We will suffer, but they don't suffer too much. Because the government keeps saying in the future, we are doing this for the future. Do you know what? I'm over 50 now. I've been hearing this since when I was small. When I was in secondary school in the 80s, they were talking about a great future. You understand? They say, Nigeria, if you suffer today, there will be a greater future. And I'm already in that future. I've not seen any greatness. So if you now keep talking about a future that we cannot touch, you are talking about life being better. Tomorrow, somebody will say life will be better tomorrow. When is that tomorrow coming? So the government must sit down and say, look, we have to do something so that Nigerians can feel the benefit of these reforms. Transportation, we keep talking about it. Medical care, education, food. Electricity, these things should be cheaper than they are. Nigerians are not asking for the world. They're asking they want to be able to live our lives normally. We don't want to become, we are not competing with Dangote. We just want to live our normal lives. But then things are becoming harder and harder, and that's why I support the World Bank. They've done their own bit by telling you what to do. You have done it, but you need to do your own bit. The World Bank cannot come and run Nigeria for you as a country. It's your duty to do so.
All right, speaking of paying bills, residents kick as FCT Council resuscitates TV and radio set tax. What is your take on that?
That is really annoying. You know why it is annoying? We are complaining that we don't have this money. You understand? The value of the money we have has gone down. We are looking for money to eat, and someone is talking about TV license. TV and radio license. So they want to come to our houses and audit these gadgets in our homes. That's okay. For this TV, you must pay so amount of money. For radio, you must. You see, it is annoying. It's totally annoying because we are overtaxed in Nigeria.
All right.
VAT is going up. By next year, a whole lot of taxes will be introduced. Then somebody is thinking about another TV tax.
All right, Dr. Theophilus,
it's unacceptable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
And unpacking all the headlines on our national dailies. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is all we have on Daybreak this morning. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. same time so you don't miss out on engaging and interesting conversations. I'm Hawada Mikiawa. Thank you for watching.
And I am Mimuna Bagudu. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay informed. Have a good day. Bye-bye.